Hi everyone, welcome to the newest video of Thriving in EFL. Today I wanted to talk to you about energy, and I don't know if you've noticed, I'm an extremely high energy person. You see, I speak faster than I think, and that's just my thing, and I don't think I'll ever try to change it because there is no point. But I've learned some ways to channel my energy well. I've learned some ways to manage it so I avoid burnout, which I'm constantly at the verge of. But hopefully those tips are useful for you as well. So, guys, energy, you know, when you look at me, and I've heard that comment a few times that, where does she take that energy from? I'm not that energetic. I'm a different personality. That's fine. Okay. What you see is that I'm high energy, but for me, it's actually extremely hard to relax and calm down. So there are negative sides of my energy. Obviously, I come across as positive, a volcano of ideas, energy, and creativity. Yes, that's true. But the downside is that it's much, much, much easier for me to actually reach burnout. It's much easier for me to hyper focus on things and then forget about my needs. And that's also from a perspective of a person with ADHD. If there are any ADHD people here, please let me know in comments. I'd like to, connect and share experiences. So guys, this is me, okay? So I've recognized that's who I am, that's how I function. And I had to work around it. I had to come up with ways of thinking how to channel that energy best and how to use it as my leverage in my profession, in my business, in my everyday life. So there are some things that I do that might be helpful for you. One of the first things is I plan in bulk. I plan my actions for the whole week. I plan then blocks of time every day. So I know when the important things are happening, usually in the morning. I always say I'm a night but I actually function the best in the morning. I like to get things done. I like to have them finished. I am extremely bad at breaking tasks down into smaller parts. If you're good at it, great for you. I mean, it's just a tip in itself, break things down. But I instead plan my blocks of time and do my most important tasks when I've got the most energy. So I work when I'm most effective. That's tip number 2. I've recognized it's the first 3 hours in the morning. So that's when I do the most important things, like literally recording this video. It's 11 a.m. and I'm quite hyped. I might be still come across as, high energy in the afternoon, but I know inside myself that it's not really the case. And my next tip is setting boundaries. I've talked about it a lot, but I think there's nothing wrong in repeating it because it's super important. So my boundaries are turning off notifications in my phone. I get easily distracted, so I have to turn off the notifications, even if it's something super important. Nothing, nobody will die, nothing will happen if I ignore it for 30 minutes, because 30 minutes is probably the longest in terms of my attention span on some tasks. And it has to be a really interesting task for me to be able to focus for 30 minutes. Otherwise, it's no more than 10 minutes actually. And it's okay. It's okay. It's just working ways around the way you function. So boundaries. The next boundary is I have a clear, this is work time, this is family time sort of division. I know it's trivial, but you need to think about that and calculate for that in your weeks. And especially if you're a freelance teacher or a freelance trainer, it's very easy to lose that division because your working hours might be quite irregular. So please think about that in advance. Plan for your downtime. That's my tip number 3 or 4. Sorry, lost count. I get distracted. Plan your downtime, plan your breaks. So now every day, every working day, I've got a lunch break planned for 12:30 till 2 p.m. It's not always an hour and a half, but I really aim at such a long break because I otherwise work very, very, very extremely intensively. So I think I can allow myself to have such a long break. I sometimes even take a nap. I love naps. Anybody else loves naps? Let me know. Anyways, that's it. Planning time to relax. Weekends, every day, probably if you can't afford it, it might not be an hour and a half. But even if it's a short bit of time, I think it's still worth to plan because we just forget. We tend to forget. And please don't forget that when you're working online, you get naturally exhausted much easier. The screens are just something that kills us. Obviously, not literally, but I notice that when I look at the screen and work in front of the screen for too long, I can't sleep well. And the blue light, the thing, so plan for time before you go to bed that you have to unwind, to meditate, to read, to not look at the screen, basically. And the next thing is voice notes. I know it's a little bit weird, but this is something that I personally use, and this is something that has been recommended by my life coach. I did some life coaching at the beginning of 2021, and it's been life-changing. So really, really recommend it if you don't know what to do, where to go with your life. It gives you direction and purpose. But sorry, again, a digression. Voice notes. So I have lots of ideas. As a teacher, I also have lots of ideas for lessons, for materials, for resources. And before I had a chance to write them down or start creating them, I would often forget. So what I do now is I use the simplest voice note app on my phone, and I just record my ideas. Simple as that. So why is that connected with energy? Because I use a lot of my energy on trying to remember things, and there is accumulation of them in my brain, and it's exhausting, and it's extremely exhausting. So in order to avoid that, I record my voice notes. Simple. And the last one, I reward myself. So very often I cannot focus, very often I get distracted, very often I cannot just simply sit down and do a task. ADHD has a lot to do with it, but I think, neurotypical people struggle with that as well. So what I do is I reward myself. I set myself certain goals, whether it is, okay, I'm going to focus for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I'm going to do something nice. It could be a cup of coffee. It could be, I don't know, whatever. A little stretch, whatever, lifts you up, whatever makes you think, yes, I can do it. And then that reward is actually going to be a reward. So that's worked wonders for me. So I, again, recommend it 100%. So these are my tips for how you can channel or manage your energy in teaching or in training, especially if your hours are quite irregular. Planning in bulk, setting boundaries, working when you're most effective, voice notes, and rewarding yourself. I hope that's helped. Let me know which one you're going to use today, this week. Maybe you're using some of them, and share some of yours. I think different people have their own ways. These are just mine, and hopefully they are useful. But if you've got yours, please share them with the community so everybody can learn from each other. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for coming back, for your support, comments. As always, please comment, like, share, subscribe so I can reach more people and help them thrive in EFL. Thank you and see you next week.